Hey guys, tonight we're spending the night in a place that hasn't had a visitor leave in one piece since the 1800s. Welcome to St. Lysandra's Academia boarding school, tucked into the snow-choked cliffs of the Austrian Alps. The windows are tall, arched, and always fogged from the inside. The stone walls sweat like they're remembering something. The kind of place where if your footsteps echo, it's not because you're alone, but because something is walking exactly in sync with you. There's a fine layer of frost on the Rotillon gate as you push it open. The cold doesn't bite. It clings like fingers. You step out of the car, the driver never looked back, and crunch over snow so smooth it looks ironed. No footprints lead to the entrance, but the heavy oaken doors are cracked open just enough to suggest someone, or something, is waiting. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I want to see who's brave enough to listen to this with the lights off. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step inside. The air inside St. Lysandra's is warmer than expected, but not in a welcoming way. It's the warmth of an old breath, held too long. Gas lamps flicker on without being touched. The hall smells of lavender soap, and something behind it sweet and rotted, like fruit that's gone to vinegar. A grandfather clock ticks somewhere, deeper in the building, but each talk feels like it's a little too slow. Like the seconds themselves are drowsy and watching you. You're guided wordlessly by a pale woman in a red scarf. No smile, no blink, just a nod down the corridor. She doesn't tell you her name. When you turn back to thank her, she's already gone. The dormitory wing yawns open, and snowflakes sneak in through the cracked stained glass windows, even though they're shut. You're in room 306, third floor, west corner. The doorknob is cold enough to burn. The hallway lights flicker once, and in that single blink of darkness, you swear the door across from yours opens an inch-sized dot inside. Room 306 is spare but oddly lived in. The bed has a slight dip, like someone sat on it for too long. A desk in the corner is marked with tiny scratches, short, vertical lines in groups of 5. You count them, 40-7, and one carved eye, right above the radiator. Your suitcase is already on the bed. That's odd. You carried it in, right? You must have, but you don't remember setting it down. You shake it off. Just travel nerves, altitude haze. And besides, the history of these schools is always a little eccentric, right? Some of the earliest boarding schools, like Schulfata in Germany, were originally monasteries. You try to reassure yourself places like this are bound to feel reverent, cold, full of whispers. You're brushing your teeth when you hear it, a soft hum, low and rhythmic, behind the mirror. You press your ear to the wall. It's a voice, no lyrics, just tone, like a lullaby from a language you never learned but almost remember. You sleep fully clothed at 3:06 a.m. Exactly, your phone screen glows, though it shouldn't. You wake up to the sound of feet outside your room. Not footsteps, just feet. Bare, slow, dragging. A pause. Then the soft knock-knock of knuckles. You don't answer. By 7:12 a.m. the hallway is filled with uniforms and nervous laughter. Students you don't remember meeting walk by. Some nod, others pretend you're not there. One girl, tall and pin-straight like a mannequin dressed for ballet, pauses and says, "Oh, I thought you weren't coming until next week." You ask what she means. She just smiles without her eyes and hurries away. At orientation, the headmistress mentions the school's long history. Founded in 1794, St. Lysandra's was originally a convent. We believe in tradition, she says, and in making space for all who wish to learn. Her teeth are just a little too sharp. When she says all, she doesn't blink either. You ask someone what happened to room 305. The girl from earlier says there is no room 305. That's when you realize you've never seen anyone go into the room beside yours, not once. That night, the wind howls through the corridor like it's caught on something. The radiator spits steam. Your window fogs from the outside. You swear the outline of a hand presses gently to the glass. 5 fingers, but too long, way too long. You step back, and the cold draft you didn't notice before. It's coming from inside the closet. You open it. There's nothing inside, but an old wire hanger and a faint smell of lilac and rust. You close it again, but later, as you doze off, you hear the faintest sound behind the closet door, breathing in, out, like something patiently pretending to sleep. You cover your ears and tell yourself it's the pipes. It's always the pipes, but you can't help noticing. Your breath fogs in the air, even under the covers. And in the silence between heartbeats, you realize the radiator isn't broken. It's off. It's always been off, and yet the draft never leaves. You wake to frost, not on the window on your pillow, just a fine, silvery dusting across the corner, catching the morning light like glitter from some forgotten winter god. You run a finger across it and taste salt and metal. Not snow, not dust, more like ash or skin. Room 306 is colder than the hallway outside. You check the thermostat, but there isn't one. Just a brass plaque that reads, "Comfort is the enemy of discipline." You laugh because it sounds like the kind of thing a prep school would believe. Then you notice your breath again, fogging the air, just like last night. That draft from the closet, still there. You check again, empty, though now the hanger is gone. You remember reading that medieval European castles were often built with intentional cold drafts. Spirit ventilation, some called it. A way for ghosts to pass without getting stuck in walls. Historians still argue whether it was superstition or early architectural understanding of airflow. Either way, room 306 has perfect spirit ventilation. In class, you try to shake it off, but you can't focus. Not because of the lesson it's world history, and you love world history, but because the boy 3 seats ahead of you has frost on the back of his neck. Just like your pillow, the teacher, Mr. Holtz, doesn't seem to notice. He drones on about Charlemagne while the boy rubs at the back of his neck, like something's whispering into it. Did you know that Napoleon once considered building a school for the gifted deep in the Alps, modeled after Roman temples? It never happened, at least, not officially. But fringe researchers believe he did fund something, and the funding line just vanished. The theory that St. Lysandra started with that very money. Funny how no one can find any pre-1794 blueprints of this place. After class, you ask the boy his names, Jonas, if he's okay. He says, "I think I sleepwalked last night. I woke up standing in the hallway. My feet were blue." You ask if he remembers anything. He nods slowly. "I think I was knocking on a door." You don't ask which one. You already know, back in room 306. You finally opened the desk drawer. Inside is a single piece of paper, yellowed with age. It reads, "Do not remind her to blink. She remembers." but it's not for you. You turn it over, nothing on the back. That night, you dream in 3 dimensions, not metaphorically. You feel yourself walking through the halls in complete lucidity. But the floor isn't wood, it's ice. Ice that cracks with each step, showing darkness beneath. You reach for the door to your room, and something opens it for you. You don't see their face, but they're humming that same tune. From behind the mirror, you wake up freezing, heart hammering, and there's something else in the bed. Just wait, at your feet. Like someone small is curled up there, under the covers. You don't move. You can't move. Sleep paralysis, you tell yourself. It's just sleep paralysis, but then it shifts. Slides upward, slowly, like it's climbing you. You hear breathing again, this time faster, excited, closer. And then the fire alarm screams. You bolt upright, gasping, but there's no fire. No other alarms, just yours. You yank open the door into a hallway full of bleary students. A teacher appears, seconds later, tall, sharp woman in a navy turtleneck. No clipboard, no flashlight. Ignore it, she says calmly. Room 306 always does that, always. You try to ask what she means, but she's already walking away. She moves quickly for someone who never seems to blink. Back in your room, you unplug the alarm. It's wired to the wall, not battery powered. No button for false alarms. And the time reads 3:06 a.m. again. Of course it does. The next day, you get curious. You check the Academy's archived blueprints in the library. They're dusty and handwritten and smell like mildew. You trace your finger along the 3rd floor dorm layout and find room 306 circled in red ink, with one word next to it, mouth. No explanation, no key, just that word. Later, in the common room, Jonas asks if your room has the draft to. You nod. He frowns and says, "Don't look in the vents. Whatever you do, I did. And now, I can't stop hearing." But before he can finish, the fire bell rings again, just for you. And when you return to your room this time, the closet is open, the hanger is back. But this time, it's not empty. A long grey scarf hangs from it. You didn't bring a scarf. The tag reads, "Property of Annika." That's when you remember the name carved into your bed frame, and that the creaking in the ceiling last night didn't sound like rats. It sounded like someone pacing back and forth, counting steps, and softly singing. The portrait is impossible to ignore. It hangs in the great hall, right above the fireplace that's never lit. 12 feet tall, encased in a tarnished bronze frame that looks more like a tomb than decoration. She sits upright in the chairs at Lysandra herself, or, at least, the woman who claims the name. You never noticed it the first 2 days. Maybe because her eyes were turned slightly to the left then. But now they're looking directly at you. She's pale, not just light skin drained, like candle wax sculpted into a smile. Her gown is stiff with embroidery, every thread stitched into the shape of vines that don't grow anymore. And her hands rest gently in her lap, except for one finger index extended, pointing just slightly toward the left side of the painting. You follow the gesture. It's subtle, but the direction leads to a set of double doors you're almost sure were locked yesterday. One of your classmates whispers, "Don't say her name out loud." She remembers who forgets. You glance at them, but they're already gone. There's a known phenomenon in medieval art. Painters echo. Historians still argue whether it's simply poor brushwork or intentional optical trickery. But certain portraits seem to change depending on the viewer's guilt. The more you've done or thought about doing, the more the painting judges you. The founder's eyes don't just follow you, they narrow dot today. You swear she's frowning. You test it. You walk across the room. You blink once. Her mouth is a bit more closed. The corners turned in, slightly, like she tasted something sour. The lights flicker when you stare too long, and in the fireplace beneath her frame, someone's written in ash. She knows about the scarf. You leave immediately, but the halls feel narrower than usual. You check your watch, it's to 14 p.m. You check again in the next hallways, 2:14, but the sky outside has shifted from snowy, grey to dusk. Time slips here. It folds like laundry in this place. Back in the dorm, you decide to hang the scarf on the coat hook behind your door. The moment you do, the air pressure shifts. Like you opened a door in a submarine. Your ears pop. The window unfogs itself for a moment, and on the outside, written in a perfect circle of frost, 3:06 a.m., your roommate is the one who tells you the next part. Annika, they whisper, was the founder's niece. She came here in 1849 and never left. Her room was sealed after they found her diary. You ask what was in the diary. They hesitate. Then, she believed the portrait moved when she wasn't looking. She thought it could see dreams, that it remembered things no one told it. One day, she just walked into the snow. No coat, no shoes, left the scarf on the hook. You don't. Ask how your roommate knows this. You're afraid, they'll say, because I used to have your room that night. You dream of the portrait, but you're in it. You're seated in her place. The frame is too tight. You can't move your arms. Your mouth is stuck in a soft, shallow smile. Below you, students walk in and out of the hall, never seeing you, never looking up. And across from you, where the fire should be, is a mirror. You see yourself blink, once, slowly, and then you wake up screaming. The scarf is gone. You search the room, desk, closet, nothing. You run to the hallway and check the hook, empty, but there are now wet footprints leading down the hall, bare, small, and not melting. You follow them. Something compels you. You count the doors, 308, 309, 310, till you reach a door that wasn't there before. The brass plate is upside down. Inside, the room is dark, not unlit dark, like the light is being eaten. You reach in to flick the switch, but your fingers brush against fabric. Will damp, the scarf is hanging from a ceiling beam. You turn to run, but the door closes on its own. Locks, clicks. You're trapped. You pound on it, shout, beg, but your voice goes nowhere then. From behind you, a whisper, soft, girlish, tinged with frost. Why did you let me freeze? You don't answer. You can't answer. And even if you did, the voice wouldn't care. It just hums now. That tune again. And slowly, your eyes adjust not by choice, but by force. Like the room is showing you something. There's no furniture, just floorboards and scratches, like fingernails. Then finally, the door opens on its own. You spill out, gasping, into the hallway. Room 311 is gone. No door, no plate. Just a long stretch of empty wall. You run back to the portrait. She's smiling again, but her finger now points the other direction, toward the chapel, and you're almost certain her lips have parted just slightly, as if mid-breath or mid. The hallway to the chapel is always dimmer than it should be. Not dark, exactly, but as if the walls themselves are absorbing the light. Every bulb overhead has that soft yellow tinge of sickness, like it's tired of trying. Your footsteps echo, weirdly here, delayed just enough to make you question whether they're really your footsteps at all. You pass one stained glass window, then another. The colors are muted, like they've been scrubbed clean of meaning. No saints, no halos, just abstract swirls of color and, in one, very faint, a silhouette of a woman with her mouth open and her arms outstretched. She's not praying. She's waiting. The chapel doors are tall and heavy, carved with angels whose wings have long since flaked away. As you reach out to push them open, the air behind you thickens. You know that feeling when someone stands too close, breathing behind your neck. You turn fast, nothing except the sound of cloth dragging along stone. The chapel groans when you open it, like it hasn't had visitors in years. Which would make sense, except you've seen staff enter this building every Sunday. You've even seen the schedule. Sunday service, 9 a.m., attendance mandatory. So where do they go? Inside the room is cavernous. Rows of empty pews stretch forward, like ribs. The air is colder than outside, somehow stale with the smell of candle wax and old secrets. At the front, beneath a vaulted ceiling, stands an altar, and behind it, that stained glass, you didn't see it from the outside. It shows the founder again, but this time, her face is split into 3 overlapping expressions: serene, weeping, and screaming. You stare at it too long, then you blink, and one of the figures is gone. You blink again. All 3 are back, but now, the weeping one has her eyes open. Blood-red glass shards form the irises. The next time you look away, her mouth is smiling. You sit in the pew closest to the exit, just to listen, just to feel the place. That's when you hear the rustle of fabric, not behind you, beneath you. You look down. Carved into the wood beneath the seat are initials, dozens, some fresh, some clawed in the corner. AKU shift. Uncomfortably, there's an old legend about medieval monks who buried secrets beneath chapels. Historians still argue whether these were crypts, hidden storage, or places of penance. But some believe they were offerings, places where unwanted things, sin's voices. People were quietly interred to protect the larger group at St. Lysandra's. That makes a certain amount of sense. You rise and approach the altar. There's a small wooden door behind it, unlocked. Inside is a spiral staircase that shouldn't be there. Your phone's flashlight flickers twice and then dies, but you still descend. You count the steps, 15, then 20, then 35. Your breath fogs again. You hear dripping, like water from a cavern ceiling. Then something else, a scratch. Then a voice, faint, feminine, singing. You recognize the tune. It's the one from your dream, the one from behind the mirror, the one you're starting to hum without realizing. At the bottom, a stone corridor. No lights, just more of those strange, ancient vents. You feel air moving, but from where? You follow the sound. It grows louder, but not clearer. The lyrics never form, just syllables that ache with age. At last, you reach a small chamber, maybe 6 feet wide. At its center, a stone table, and on it, a bound book, old, blackened, cracked with time. You open it. The pages are empty, until you reach the middle. There, scrawled in faded ink, a single sentence across both pages. I dream her fingers still move. You shut the book hard enough to echo. That's when you hear it. Soft shuffling. Someone's in the corridor, but the light from above is gone. The door's closed. You wait, holding your breath. The footsteps pass. You don't dare peek. You don't need to. You know they weren't walking on the floor. They were crawling. You count to 100. Then 300. Eventually, you climb back up. The chapel is bright again. Morning sun streams through the glass. The founder's face is peaceful. Her eyes closed, but the weeping one, her mouth is wide open now. No one ever mentions your absence. At breakfast, in fact, no one makes eye contact with you the whole day, not until your final class. When the teacher pauses mid-sentence, stares at you, and says, "I didn't expect you to still be here." You ask what she means. She blinks, confused, and says, "Who are you again?" That night, you find a note under your pillow, written in the same faded ink. You've seen her chapel. She'll visit you next. And when you lie in bed, you swear. You hear footsteps again, but they're not in the hall. They're above your ceiling, pacing and humming. You try to report it. Not the footsteps, not the chapel, but just something, a feeling, an incident. You don't even know how to word it, honestly. You catch one of the administrators between classes, Mr. Cerny, always chewing clove gum, always wearing gloves, even indoors. You say, "There's someone in the ceiling." He stares for a moment too long. Then he says, "You've been in room 306 less than a week, haven't you?" You nod. He sighs, tilts his head, and says, "That room takes a little adjustment. She doesn't like change." You ask who doesn't. Like change, Mr. Cerny just walks away, mumbling something about choir practice and Thursday. You don't have choir on Thursday still, that night. You lie in bed with your covers up to your nose, flashlight on, heart pounding. And when the clock flips to 3:17 a.m., it starts the hum. Not from behind the mirror this time. Not from the ceiling below. Below, directly beneath your floorboards. It starts low. Male and female voices in harmony. Soft, rounded vowels. Nothing you recognize. It builds, adding strange percussion, rhythmic thumps, like fists hitting wood, then softer smacks, like bare feet slapping a stone floor in time. You pull the bed away from the wall. Get on your hands and knees. There's a vent behind your dresser. You unscrew it with trembling fingers. And what you see behind the grill makes you sit back so fast your spine cracks. A staircase, not to somewhere, a staircase going down. You close the vent, try to sleep. You tell yourself you imagined it, even as the choir continues under your bed. For the next 27 minutes, exactly, you record the sound on your phone. In the morning, the file is gone. Just the title remains, track_317.m4a, and a glitchy waveform image shaped like a human mouth. You go to the library. You try to find anything about underground levels, boiler rooms, choir practice. You flip through dozens of leather-bound ledgers and yearbooks older than the light bulbs. You spot one picture. 1883. A student choir standing around a marble altar. You recognize the room. It's the chapel's basement, except the walls are open, hollowed out behind them, shelves, rows of jars. Something floating inside each. You squint. Each jar holds a tongue. You slam the book shut. A librarian appears from nowhere, placing one finger to her lips. "No singing in the stacks," she whispers, though you hadn't made a sound. That night, you take a different route back. To your dorm. Down a hallway you don't normally use. Less traveled. You hear it again, faint singing, rising up through the walls. A door opens. Not by your hand, not mechanically, just opens. You peek inside, a maintenance closet. mop bucket, shelves. The floor is concrete, wet in patches. You step inside, drawn by the music, the moment you're in. The door slams behind you. No handle on this side. Pitch black. You breathe shallowly. Try your phone light. It works for all of 2 seconds before flickering out. You hear something slither across the wet floor. And then a soft voice in your ear. Not in English, not in any language, but you understand one word. Name. It's asking for your name. You don't give it. The silence that follows is not relief. It's disappointment. You hear the whisper, again, closer, this time in sync with your heartbeat. Then the door opens by itself. You don't hesitate. You run back to room 306. You bolt the door, push the dresser in front of it. Sleep with the light on, and at 3:17 a.m., like clockwork, the choir begins again. You sit in the center of the bed, humming with them before you realize it. You bite your tongue until you taste blood. The next morning, a folded note appears on your pillow. It reads, "We saved your voice. For now, you're late to class. On your way, you pass a door you've never seen before. It's labeled vocal training, SPLVL. You ask a nearby student if they've ever gone in there. They blink. There's no basement. You point. Then what's that? But when you turn to look, the door is gone. Just blank stone. You tell yourself you're hallucinating. Sleep, deprivation, stress. You almost believe that until lunch. That's when you sit beside Jonas again, and he says, "Did they hear you singing yet?" You freeze, ask what he means. He shrugs. If they like your voice, they keep it. If not, they teach it to scream. Then he takes another bite of bread like he didn't just say that. You notice, for the first time, that his tongue has a faint scar center to tip. He sees you looking, smiles, doesn't blink. You never hear Jonas speak again after that day. The bed creaks again that night, but not from your movement. You're perfectly still, hands folded on your chest, eyes wide open, listening. The creaking comes in steady intervals. 1.2 THREE. Pause. Then again, from the far side where no weight should be, like someone invisible is sitting there, slowly shifting. You sit up. There's an impression on the blanket, a dip where hips might go, legs outstretched beside yours. It deepens just a little more, as though someone is leaning. In. Then, softly, a sigh. Warm near your cheek. You don't scream. You just slide out of bed like your bones are made of glass and try not to cry. You check the frame. Again, there it is. The name, Annika, carved into the wood in 3 different handwritings. You hadn't imagined it. Each carving is slightly deeper than the last. The newest one is fresh enough to flake. You rub your finger over it and come away with a splinter. There's a word underneath it now. You swear it wasn't there before. Stay. You try sleeping on the floor that night, wrapped in your jacket, pressed against the wall. The bed creaks anyway. Above you, beneath you. Inside the wall, something scuttles like nails tapping wood. You close your eyes. You dream in grey. You're walking the halls barefoot. The air smells of mildew and melted snow. You pass locked doors, and behind each one, someone is humming. Always that song. Always a different pitch. You reach your room in the dream, but it's not room 36. It's labeled sheepfold. And the door isn't wooded stitched fabric, like raw canvas, pulled tight and sewn into place. You press your palm to it and it breathes. That's when you wake up. Your blanket is folded neatly. A glass of water waits on your desk. But you didn't leave either that way. And you didn't drink the water last night. Yet the glass is empty during breakfast. Someone whispers about a student who disappeared over the weekend. She was in the choir, they murmur, had a beautiful voice. She sang the solo last Thursday. You remember that day that a humming under your bed had been louder, harmonized, euphoric. Someone says her name was Elodie. Someone else says, don't say her name too loud. You ask why, they answer, she hasn't stopped singing. Later, you open the closet again. It smells different now, less of rust, more of damp flowers. You find a crumpled school paper tucked into the corner, yellowed and torn. It's a worksheet labeled Choir Theory, Volume 4. It has no answers. Just one question repeated over and over. What sound does silence make? The last line is scrawled in frantic cursive. The mouth under the school doesn't sleep anymore. You visit the chapel again, not because you want to, but because something pulls you. Every corridor leads there now, even the ones that shouldn't. You turn left to go to the library and find yourself at the sanctuary doors. Inside, candles burn, but you know no one lit them. The stained glass has changed again. The founder's 3 faces are now just 2, one weeping, one smiling. The third, the serene one, knees shattered. Glass litters the floor below in symmetrical shapes, almost intentional. At the altar lies a scarf, grey, damp, yours, and beside it, an old hand-bound book. You flip it open. The page is blank. Then a single line appears as you hold it. She used to knock before entering. You don't remember sitting down. But when you come to, you're in the front pew, hands folded, breath shallow, and something is standing behind. The pulpit not visible, but felt. It clears its throat, softly, deliberately. You rise, slowly, not turning your back to the altar, and exit the chapel. That night, you move your bed. Try to sleep in the hallway instead. But the air there is colder than the room. And there's a new sound now, ticking from inside the wall. Faint, mechanical, like a metronome, or worser, music box winding down. You press your ear to the paneling. You hear a voice. Annika was the first. You jump back. Room 306 doesn't let you sleep anymore. You lie awake until dawn, waiting eventually. The sunlight filters in, cutting through the fog. The frost melts from the corners of the window. But there's something new. A fingerprint, perfect, on the inside. 5 points, pressed hard. One is elongated. You reach to wipe it away and the glass is warm. That day, Jonas doesn't show up for class. Someone's sitting in his seat. You ask a girl beside you who it is. She frowns. That's Jonas. You say, no, it's not. Jonas had dark hair, freckles. She laughs, but there's no humor in it. He's always looked like that. You glance back at the boy. He smiles, and his teeth are too straight too. Uniform, like someone painted the idea of teeth onto his face. You say nothing. The teacher continues. That evening, a new schedule is slid under your door. You're assigned to choir practice, below the boiler room, 3:17 a.m. The staff here aren't quite right. You notice it the moment you step into the dining hall, 3 of them, sitting at a table, staring without blinking, smiles stretched way too wide, like porcelain dolls with chipped paint. Their lips move, but there's no warmth in their voices. You catch one teacher, Ms. Gruber, during lunch. She's slicing her bread with the precision of a surgeon, but the knife never seems to cut through. The bread looks untouched after she eats, and her eyes, those lifeless eyes, don't blink once. Instead, she stares at you, and you feel like she's counting every second you breathe. Historians still argue whether the earliest boarding schools in Europe were run like prisons or sanctuaries, but here, the line feels dangerously thin. The faculty's strange behavior makes you think they aren't really human, or maybe they've just forgotten how to be. When the bell rings, a sudden chill sweeps through the room. The teachers all turn at once. Their movements are unnervingly synchronized, like a puppet show on repeat. The headmaster, who usually blends into the background, suddenly speaks in a voice that isn't his own, slow, grinding, like sandpaper. Scraping over wood, "You don't belong here," he says, and for a moment, you swear his eyes flicker red. You back away, heart pounding. You try to leave the hall, but the doors won't open. The teachers begin to hum the same haunting tune you've heard beneath the floor. The room fills with that sound, an eerie choir, their voices twisting and bending in impossible harmonies. Ms. Gruber leans close and whispers, "We don't eat, because we never truly sleep." You glance around. Their faces start to blur and shift, revealing glimpses of something beneath the hollow shells of people drained dry. Their skin tightens and loosens, like old leather stretched over a frame. You bolt toward the door as it suddenly swings open. The hallways are empty and silent. Later that evening, you find an old staff roster hidden behind a loose brick in the dorm wall. The names listed go back centuries. Some names match the teachers you've seen. Others have been dead for decades. One entry catches your eye. Miss Louise Gruber, employed 1872 to 1893. You shiver, the lights flicker, and from the hallway you hear footsteps, slow, deliberate, counting. You lock your door and hide under the covers. The bed creaks again. The night is a slow grind of whispered footsteps and distant hums, each beat syncing with the throb in your temples. You tell yourself to breathe, to calm down. But the air feels thick, almost viscous-like. Every breath pulls in something unwelcome. You tuck yourself deeper beneath a blanket, the edges of which feel damp against your skin. You can't remember how long you've been awake, eyes darting toward the closet every few seconds, expecting it to spring open. That's when the door creaks, just a hair. You freeze, heart pounding so loud it threatens to burst your eardrums. The closet door shifts slightly, then clicks back closed. You don't move, you don't breathe. You remember the warning carved into the bed frame. Stay. You try to resist, but curiosity is a cruel friend. You reach for the door, every nerve screaming to stop, but your fingers find the knob, cold and sticky like wet leather. The closet is empty again, just the hanger, but now the hanger holds a small, weathered book. You open it cautiously. The pages are filled with neat, looping script in a language you don't recognize. It's rhythmic and flowing, like poetry. But as you flip through, the letters start to blur and twist, forming shapes, faces, eyes, mouths wide open in silent screams. A note slips out and flutters to the floor. You pick it up, written in ink, so faded it's almost invisible. Do not speak her name aloud, or she will answer. The hairs on your neck stand up. The air around you grows colder to cold for this time of year. You close the closet quickly and back away, but the school isn't done with you yet. At dinner, the candles flicker violently as a sudden gust sweeps through the dining hall. Plates rattle, glasses clink, and the choir hum you've come to dread fills the room. But this time it's layered with something newer, soft, childlike laughter that doesn't belong. You glance around. No one else seems to notice. You ask the girl beside you if she hears it. She smiles, but her mouth stretches too wide. Teeth too sharp, and says, "The laughter is just the echo of those who stay too long." Outside, the Alps are a blur of white and shadow. You look up at the sky, hoping for the cold clarity of stars. But clouds smother every light dot as you return to your dorm. The hallway mirrors distort your reflectional elongated limbs, hollow eyes staring back. You catch your breath, but the figure doesn't move with you. Instead, it smiles and blinks. The library feels different now. As you push open the heavy oak doors, a wave of cold hits you, more biting than before, and mixed with a faint scent of decay, like forgotten pages left to rot in damp cellars. The grand hall is silent, except for the soft scrape of your shoes against the ancient floor. You move deeper into the stacks, drawn by a strange compulsion. The dim light casts long shadows between the towering shelves, and somewhere far off, you hear a faint whisper like the flutter of a page turning. You stop at a narrow aisle you've never noticed before, where the shelves seem older, dustier, the books thicker and bound in cracked leather. There, a single volume lies atop a pedestal, open and glowing faintly with a sickly green light. You reach out, hesitant. The book's pages flutter despite the still air, settling on a chapter titled, "The Voices Beneath the School." Your eyes scan the text. Beneath the stones and wood, the choir sings in tongues lost to time. They harvest voices like fruit, binding souls to silence, offering their sound in eternal servitude. Historians still argue whether such rituals were myth or reality, but local legend holds that St. Lysandra's was built atop an ancient burial ground, where the restless dead gave voice to the living in exchange for passage. A cold breath brushes your neck, and you spin around empty shelves. No one, only the whispering pages. You slam the book shut, but the sound echoes unnaturally loud. Suddenly, the overhead lights flicker violently, and a chorus swells, a haunting melody that seeps into your bones, sung in a language older than the Alps themselves. Your knees weaken, your vision blurs. The words lace into your mind, twisting your thoughts, urging you to join the endless song. You try to resist. You remember the carved warning, "Do not remind her to blink." You try to focus on the mundane, your breathing, the tick of the clock, the feel of your shoes, but the choir surrounds you, closing in just when you think you'll lose yourself. A shadow crosses the doorway, a librarian. Her eyes are milky white, her mouth frozen in a grim smile. "Time to close up," she says softly. You gather the book and stumble toward the exit, but the halls seem to stretch endlessly. The doors ahead recede as you approach, twisting into impossible shapes. You stop, dizzy and gasping, and realize the book's pages are no longer blank. Inside, they're filled with your handwriting, and beneath your scrawl, she watches, always. Your footsteps echo hollowly down the endless halls, the scent of damp stone and cold metal clinging to your clothes like a second skin. The walls shift imperceptibly around you, now a bit narrower, then impossibly wider until you're no longer sure which way leads back. You try to steady yourself, but the floor beneath your feet feels unstable, as if it might give way to an abyss. You find yourself standing before a door you've never seen. Heavy oak stained black, etched with strange symbols that pulse faintly, like they're breathing. You reach out, fingers trembling, and push it open. Inside is a small room lit by flickering candles. The air is thick with the smell of burning wax and something far more bitter, something like burnt hair. On the floor lies a cracked mirror, its surface fractured into spider webs that distort your reflection into grotesque shapes. You approach, staring into the glass, and your reflection smiles back, but the smile isn't yours. The eyes behind the smile are dark pools, empty and endless. Suddenly, your reflection blinks. You stumble back, heart pounding. The door slams shut behind you. You're trapped. From the corner of the room, a soft singing begins. The same tune the choirs. Song but slower, more deliberate. The voice is feminine, layered and trembling with sorrow. You look up, and a figure emerges from the shadows, a girl, pale as the winter snow outside, eyes wide and unblinking. She wears the grey scarf you found hanging in your closet, and her mouth is stretched into a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. Do you hear them? She whispers, voice hollow yet urgent. They sing because they're afraid, because silence is worse. You try to speak, but your voice fails you. The room tilts. The mirror cracks further, and the fractured faces seem to ripple like water. She steps closer. You're one of us now. You can't leave. You back away, but the walls close in, and the door is gone. The last thing you see before the darkness takes you is the reflection, your reflection, turning to look away. Historians still debate whether haunted mirrors trap spirits or reflect them back, but here, in St. Lysandra's, the line between self and shadow has all but disappeared. You wake up in your bed, drenched in cold sweat, heart hammering as the morning light filters through your window. For a moment, the terrifying room feels like a dream until you glance at your reflection in the cracked mirror on your dresser. The shard closest to your eye seems to ripple, distorting your face into something unrecognizable. You touch it, and the surface warps beneath your fingers, sending a shiver down your spine. The scarf lies folded neatly at the foot of your bed, damp and cold as ever, but this time, it's soaked in something dark like old ink or dried blood. Throughout the day, the school feels oppressive. The corridors stretch endlessly, whispers, trailing you everywhere. You notice the teachers no longer speak to you directly. Instead, they pass glances between themselves, as if discussing your fate silently. During history class, the teacher lectures on the 19th century expansion of European boarding schools into isolated areas, remote places designed to protect and discipline young minds. Historians still argue whether the isolation bred discipline or something far darker. Your mind drifts to the scarf, to Annika, to the choir of voices beneath the school. You wonder how many students before you vanished into the shadows, swallowed whole by the place's hunger. Later, in the library, you spot a tattered yearbook from 1893. You flip to the student list and freeze when you see a familiar name, Annika. Lysandra last known attendance, November 1849. The date matches the legend. The niece who vanished. The girl whose scarf haunts you. The page is marked with a handwritten note, still singing. You close the book, and the lights flicker again. Outside, the sky darkens unexpectedly. A storm rolls over the Alps, rain lashing against the windows, like frantic fingers. You're not sure whether the storm is outside or inside that night. As you lay in bed, the choir returns, but this time they sing your name, and somewhere deep beneath the school, the echoes answer. The wind howls outside your window, a restless chorus that feels almost alive. You lie awake, tracing the shadows dancing across your ceiling, each flicker and twist weaving into the haunting melody you've come to know all too well. The choir's song isn't just a sound anymore, it's a presence, a living thing crawling under your skin, whispering secrets you don't want to hear. You catch movement from the corner of your eye. A shadow detaches itself from the wall, coalescing into a figure cloaked in pale graith, the scarf's color drifting silently across your room. It moves without feet, gliding as if pulled by unseen strings, eyes wide, unblinking. You want to scream, but your voice is caught in your throat. The figure stops at your bedside, tilting its head, studying you with an eerie calmness. "You came back," it says, voice a brittle whisper. You nod. Unable to speak, the figure reaches out, a cold hand brushing your cheek. The touch is like ice and whispers of forgotten winters. "They need you," it says. The choir is incomplete. Your voice is the missing thread. Your mind reels. You think of the underground staircases, the endless halls, the voices harvested and bound beneath stone. The figure leans closer, and the shadows deepen. "Sing," it urges. You shake your head, desperate to resist, but the room fills with the choir's song, growing louder, insistent. The walls seem to breathe. Closing in, you close your eyes. A single note escapes your lips. The moment you sing, the shadows recoil as if stung, but the figure smiles wider, the scarf-like fabric twisting into a grin. "Welcome to the choir," it breathes. Outside, the storm breaks. Thunder rattles the panes, and lightning reveals, for a brief second, the frozen face of Saint Lysandra in the stained glass, her eyes burning with knowing fire. Historians still argue whether the legend of Saint Lysandra is warning or invitation. You realize now it's both. The morning light is cruelly bright after the night's torment. You sit on the edge of your bed, the scarf coiled in your hands, feeling heavier than ever, like it carries the weight of centuries. Every fiber seems to hum with a faint energy, as though the whispers beneath the school have seeped into the fabric itself. You get ready mechanically, your movements stiff and hollow. The halls outside your room are strangely silent. No chatter, no footsteps, just an oppressive stillness that presses down on your chest. You pass the teachers, whose gazes skim past you like you're already a ghost. You reach the chapel again, drawn like a moth to a flame. The stained glass window no longer shows the three faces, but one singular, twisting visage that seems to shift when you blink. It's impossible to look away. The figure's mouth moves, but no sound escapes. You step inside. The air is thick with incense and decay. At the altar, the scarf lies folded atop a marble slab, now glowing faintly with an otherworldly light. You pick it up and feel a sharp jolt, like a current surging through your veins. Suddenly, the doors slam shut, locking you inside. From the shadows, the choir begins again, but this time their song is dissonant, broken into shards that cut through the silence like shattered glass. You clutch the scarf tightly as the room tilts and the walls ripple. A voice whispers in your ear, soft, cold, and insistent. "Sing with us." You open your mouth, trembling, and the notes spill out. Imperfect but undeniable, the choir swells in response, wrapping around you, binding you in that moment. You see the truth. St. Lysandra's is not just a school, it's a trap, a cage for voices, and you are now part of its eternal chorus. You don't know how long you've been there, trapped in that chapel. surrounded by the ceaseless haunting choir that drags your soul deeper with every note. Time loses meaning. The walls pulse like a living thing, and the stained glass eyes follow your every move, unblinking and merciless. You try to remember who you were before this place, before the scarf, before the song, but those memories fade like mist at dawn, slipping through your fingers despite your desperate grasp. All that remains is the music, soft, persistent, unending. The voices around you grow clearer now. They whisper your name, weaving stories of the past, of Annika, Elodie, Jonas, and all the others who came before. The choir isn't just a song, it's a web, a binding spell that steals identity and turns you into part of the building itself. You see flickers of faces in the glass, young, lost, desperate. They reach out with ghostly hands, mouths open in silent screams that the choir drowns beneath its melody. You realize the scarves are their remnants, the last tether to the world they lost. Your scarf burns cold against your skin, and you understand this is no longer just about survival, it's about becoming. You try to resist, but the music seeps into your bones, rewriting your very essence. A final note rings out clear, sharp, and piercing. The chapel falls silent, and you are alone, but for how long? Dawn seeps slowly into the chapel, washing the stained glass in pale, trembling light. You stand alone, but the silence is heavy, thick as the fog that rolls endlessly over the alpine peaks outside. Your breath hangs in the chill air, visible and uneven. You touch the scarf once more, feeling the threads loosen under your fingers like it's unraveling. Or maybe you are. The chapel feels empty, but you know it's not. Somewhere beneath the stone and wood, the choir waits, patient, eternal, hungry. Their song is now only a faint echo, a soft murmur just beyond hearing. Yet, you can still feel its pulse inside your chest, a rhythmic thudding that matches your heartbeat. You step outside into the courtyard, where frost clings to the barren trees like frozen tears. The Alps rise stark and silent against a steel-grey sky, ancient and indifferent. You shiver, though the cold isn't entirely from the weather. Nearby, the school seems to breathe, the shadows shifting subtly as if the building itself is alive. Watching, you remember the warnings carved into the bed frame, the notes slipped under doors, the eyes in the glass, the voices you've heard, and those you never will. Historians still debate whether St. Lysandra's was built to protect or to imprison, but you know the truth now. It is both. You feel the scarf slip from your fingers, falling softly to the ground. The fabric flutters, catching a faint breeze that smells of winter and forgotten promises. A distant humming rises again, the choir beginning anew. You look back once, and for a fleeting moment, the chapel windows gleam with eyes that blink just for you. Then the sun breaks free from the clouds, casting long shadows, and you walk away, knowing the song will follow you forever.